Hi, I'm Jill Wolcott of Jill Wolcott Knits. Welcome to Taming Techniques. These are short videos I do to show you how I do techniques that I use in my patterns. So watch, practice, and then do it yourself. Hi, the technique we're going to do today is the flat 3-needle bind off. If you've ever done the 3-needle bind off, you know that it slightly tilts to one direction, so the flat 3-needle is exactly as it says, it's flat. So I have 2 layers of this band on needles. The pink is the right side, the purple is the wrong side. Probably you wouldn't usually have 2 different colors, but for demonstration purposes, that's great. And I also have a third color to do the bind off with so we can really see it. So I've got same size needles. I'm going to take the end of one and use it for my third needle. I will do this first continental and then I'll show you throwing. So I've got my yarn wrapped around my hand, and the yarn goes in between the 2 needles because we're actually going to purl the back stitch before we do anything with the front. So you go into the front needle as to knit, and then going outside of the yarn, you're going into the back stitch as to purl, and you're just going to purl that stitch, and without taking the stitch off the needle, but taking that new stitch through the front stitch, and then you're going to take both off. Pull that tight, and then you're going to do it again. So you return the yarn between the needles because you're going to purl that back stitch. You go into the front stitches to knit. Going outside the yarn, you go into the back stitch as to purl. You're going to purl that back stitch, and before you take it off, you're going to pull the new stitch through the front stitch and then take both off, and then you're going to take one of your needles and pull the first stitch over. So you've bound off your first stitch. Return the yarn between the needles into the front as to knit, into the back as to purl, bring the new stitch through the front and take both off and bind off your stitch. So I'll do a couple more. So purl the back, bring it through, take them off, and bind off. Knit, purl, knit, and off, and bind off. You can see that there is a ridge of pink bumps underneath the green. If your bands were both the same color, it would just be little bumps. So let me show you how to do the flat 3-needle bind off as a thrower. Your actions are just slightly different because the yarn is in your right hand. So I'm going into the front stitches to knit, and then I'm bringing the yarn in front of my needle so that I can purl the back stitch. And with the yarn in between the 2 stitches, I'm bringing my purl stitch out, or my new stitch out of my front stitch, and then I'm going to pull the knitted stitch over. So let's do that again. So in is to knit, bring it around into position to purl, wrap your yarn, pull that stitch through, and then take both stitches off, and you can bind off. So into the front, yarn forward so you can purl the back stitch, make sure your yarn is between the 2 needles and out of the way, pull your new stitch through the front stitch, take both old stitches off the needle, bind off, and let's take a look. So obviously I'm I don't throw a lot. I mostly continental knit. You can kind of see my tension isn't as even. However, if you were a thrower, your tension would probably be as nice as mine is working continental. So it's possible to do it both ways. You need to just keep that yarn out of the way when you're working it, when you're throwing. It requires a few extra movements. And there you have it, flat 3 needle bind off. Beautiful.